The sky above the mining colony of Epsilon 3 glowed a soft red, filled with dust and silence. Most of the workers had already gone inside, hiding from the cold night winds. Only the machines moved, slow, heavy, and tired like the planet itself. Then, through that quiet, a small ship broke the clouds and landed on the rough metal ground. Its engines hissed, throwing up a storm of dust. No one noticed it at first. The colony had seen too many broken ships lately, refugees, traders, and scavengers. But this ship was different. When the ramp opened, a tall alien woman stepped out wrapped in a long brown cloak. Her skin had a faint blue glow, and her silver eyes reflected the lights of the colony. In her arms she carried something, a child sleeping quietly against her chest. She looked around, unsure, afraid, yet filled with hope. Her name was Rylana, from the planet Valith, a world destroyed 5 years ago during the Human-Valith War. The humans had won, but the cost was heavy, billions lost on both sides. The war ended, but the memories never faded. And now she had returned, to find the one man she never forgot. She whispered under her breath, "Elias, if you're still alive, please find me." Rylana walked through the dusty streets. The colony lights flickered weakly. She noticed the humans' eyes following her from windows and corners. Her kind was not welcome here. The treaty had brought peace, but not trust. She wrapped the child tighter and kept moving, her boots echoing softly on the metal floor. The child stirred, making a small sound, a mix between a human sigh and an alien hum. A miner looked at her and muttered, "Damn alien still wandering around. Hasn't she learned her place?" Rylana ignored him. Her heart pounded. She had come too far to turn back now. 5 years ago, in the middle of war, she had been shot down in a canyon on a desert planet. Her wing was broken and she was ready to die, but a human soldier had found her. Lieutenant Elias Ward, a man with tired eyes and a kind heart. He could have killed her, but instead he saved her. He had hidden her for weeks, treating her wounds, bringing food, even though helping an alien was treason. They had barely spoken the same language, yet somehow they understood each other. When the war ended, he told her to escape, told her never to return. But now she had no choice. Her planet was gone. Her people were gone, and the child in her arms, half human, half Valith, was the last piece of that broken world. At the colony checkpoint, a guard stepped forward. His armor was old, his eyes suspicious. "State your name and purpose," he said roughly. Rylana bowed slightly.
"I am looking for a man."
"Elias Ward. He used to serve in the Terran army. I must find him." The guard frowned. "Ward? Don't know anyone by that name. You shouldn't be here, alien. Go back to your kind." "My kind is gone," she whispered. The guard raised his weapon. "Then leave before you cause trouble." Rylana's heart sank. She turned away, holding the child closer. The baby woke and cried softly, a strange sound that made the guard step back because it was not fully human. Its voice carried a soft, glowing vibration like music. The guard stared in shock but said nothing. Rylana walked into the night again, tears hidden by the wind. Inside an old tavern nearby, a man sat alone at a corner table. His beard was rough, his eyes empty. The scars on his hands told stories no one wanted to hear. He was Elias Ward, the man she was searching for. But he didn't know she had returned. He drank quietly, watching the fire dance in front of him. Sometimes he dreamed of her, blue light, silver eyes, and the sound of her voice. But every time he woke, he told himself it was just guilt. He had saved an enemy. He had broken orders. And now he was just another forgotten veteran on a dying planet. Then the tavern door opened. Cold wind rushed in. The few people inside turned to look. Rylana stood there. Her cloak was torn. Her face was tired. But those eyes, he knew them. For a moment the world stopped. Elias stood up slowly, unable to breathe. "Rylana?" he whispered. She looked at him, holding the child tightly. "Yes," she said softly. "And this is why I came back." The child opened its eyes, one blue, one brown, and looked at him. Elias froze. The room went silent. Every human stared in shock at the impossible truth. Rylana's voice trembled. "Elias, saying this is your child." The glass in his hand fell and shattered. The sound echoed across the silent room. For a long moment, Elias couldn't move. The noise of the tavern faded away. He just stood there, staring at Rylana and the small child in her arms. His heart pounded so loud he could barely hear anything else. The air felt heavy, like the whole world was holding its breath. "Your child?" he whispered again, his voice trembling. Rilana nodded slowly. "Yes, Elias, ours." The people around them began to murmur. Some laughed, some whispered in disgust. The barkeep, an old woman with a sharp face, spat on the floor. "Half-blood filth," she muttered. "Get that thing out of here." Elias turned sharply toward her. "Quiet," he shouted, his voice shaking the walls. The room fell silent again. But the silence was worse. It was filled with fear and hate. Rilana looked at the child, then at him. Her eyes were pleading. "I had nowhere else to go," she said softly. "Valeth is gone. The colonies refused to take us. I remembered your promise. You said if I was ever in danger I could find you." Elias swallowed hard. He did remember. But that was 5 years ago. He had told her those words when he thought he would never see her again. When war and guilt had broken his mind, he looked around at the staring faces. "We can't talk here," he said quietly. "Follow me." Outside, the night air was sharp and cold. Elias led her through narrow alleys behind the tavern, where no one could see them. The colony lights flickered, throwing shadows across his face. Rilana followed silently, clutching the child close. He stopped near an old storage building, rusted and empty. "No one comes here," he said, pushing the door open. Inside, the air smelled of dust and metal. There was a small heater and a few broken crates. It wasn't much, but it was safe. Rilana laid the child on a blanket and sat down, exhausted. Elias stared at her in the dim light, his mind full of questions. "Why?" he finally asked. "Why come back? Do you know what they'll do if they find out?" Her silver eyes shimmered with pain. "Because I had no choice. The humans destroyed Valeth. The few of us who survived were hunted. They said the child was an abomination. I couldn't protect him alone." Elias clenched his fists. He had fought in that war. He had seen both sides do terrible things. But hearing her say it broke something inside him. "You should have stayed away," he said softly. "It's not safe here. They'll kill you both." Rilana looked up. "Then why did you save me before, Elias? Why risk your life for an enemy?" He turned away, his jaw tight. "Because you weren't my enemy that day. You were just someone who needed help," she smiled sadly. "And I need your help again." The child stirred and opened his eyes, one blue, one brown. Elias couldn't look away. He saw himself in that gaze. The child's skin glowed faintly in the dark, a soft blue light from his mother's side. His tiny hand reached out toward Elias, innocent and curious. Elias slowly knelt beside him. "What's his name?" "Lior," Rilana said. "It means light of two worlds," he smiled faintly. "That's a good name." The child touched his scarred hand and giggled softly. Elias felt something deep inside him, a warmth he hadn't felt in years, but it was quickly crushed by fear. He stood up suddenly. "You can't stay here. If the guards find out, they'll arrest me too. They don't forgive people like me." Rilana rose to her feet, eyes fierce. "Then we'll hide, just until we can leave. Please, Elias, you're the only one who ever showed me kindness." He wanted to say no. He wanted to walk away. But when he looked at the child again, he couldn't. That small laugh, that innocent face, it was his. His blood. His mistake. His miracle. He sighed heavily. "All right, you can stay here. Just for a few days. I'll bring food and supplies, but no one can know. Do you understand?" Rilana nodded, relief washing over her face. "Thank you, Elias. I knew you wouldn't turn away." As he stepped outside, he looked back one last time. The dim light fell on Rilana as she hummed softly to the child. It was a lullaby in her alien language, gentle, sad, and full of longing. He walked through the cold streets, his heart heavy. The world had already judged him once for saving her. If they found out what he was doing now, he'd be executed for treason. But he couldn't stop thinking about those words. Light of two worlds. Maybe somehow that child could be hope in a universe full of hate. When he reached the main street, a figure stepped out from the shadows. It was the same guard from before, the one who had stopped Rilana at the gate. His helmet was off now and his expression was sharp. "You've got a visitor, Ward," he said coldly. "An alien woman with a kid. Care to explain why she came looking for you?" Elias froze. His hand instinctively went to the side of his coat where he kept his weapon. "I don't know what you're talking about." The guard smiled thinly. "Sure you don't, but Command might want to ask a few questions. I'd stay close if I were you." Then he turned and walked away into the dark. Elias's stomach dropped. Someone had seen them. Someone knew. He ran back toward the storage building, his heart racing. But when he opened the door, the blanket was empty. Rilana and the child were gone. Elias stood in the empty room, breathing hard. The blanket lay on the floor, still warm. The small heater hummed softly, unaware that its warmth was now useless. Rilana and the child were gone, damn it, he whispered, fists clenched. His heart hammered against his ribs. He ran outside, scanning the narrow alley. The wind carried the faint echo of footsteps. Light hurried, almost too soft to hear. She had left not long ago. He started moving, fast but silent. The colony streets were half dark, the lamps flickering as the power grid struggled again. Most people were inside, hiding from the cold or from each other. The only sounds were the distant hum of machines and the soft whisper of the storm winds rising across the desert. He remembered her eyes before he left. The fear, the exhaustion. She must have felt danger coming. Maybe she had seen the guard. Maybe someone had followed him. He turned the corner and saw a fresh trail in the dust. A cloak edge had brushed against the ground. He knelt, touching it. Still warm. "You're close, Rilana," he muttered. Too close to the wrong people. The guard who had spoken to him earlier, Sergeant Brandt, wasn't a man to ignore orders. He worked for the colony's security division, and he hated anything alien. If he had seen Rilana, she would already be on his list. Elias moved faster. Every step echoed like a warning. He reached the outer ring of the colony, where the houses were old and falling apart. A group of miners stood by a fire drum, drinking and laughing. One of them pointed down the road. "Hey, Ward," a rough voice called. "You still playing hero for those alien lovers?" Elias ignored them, but his gut twisted. The story was spreading already. He needed to find her before Brandt did. In an abandoned supply dock near the border fence, Rilana sat behind a broken cargo container, holding her child close. The child, Lear, was quiet now, his glowing blue eyes half closed. She could hear the shouts in the distance, guards searching, boots on metal, voices calling her name in anger. Her mind raced. I can't let them find him. Not again. She looked at the horizon through the gaps in the wall. Beyond the colony was the desert, endless red sand, storms, and death. But somewhere out there were still ships, traders, smugglers. Maybe one would take her off this cursed world, but she couldn't leave without Elias. Not again. Elias found the first sign near the old dock, a broken door hinge, a faint mark of her boot. He moved carefully, weapon drawn, eyes scanning every shadow. The storm outside was growing louder now, thunder rolling across the wasteland. "Rilana?" he whispered. There was no answer, only the soft crack of metal under his boots. He entered the dock, flashlight sweeping across empty crates. Then, movement. A shadow darted behind a pile of metal drums. He turned quickly. "Rilana, it's me." For a second, silence. Then she appeared, child in her arms, eyes wide with relief and fear. "Elias," she breathed. "They're coming." "The guards. I saw them near the market." He stepped closer, lowering his weapon. "I know. We have to get you out. There's an old maintenance tunnel under the north fence. It leads to the dunes. We can hide there until nightfall." She hesitated. "And after that?" He looked at the child. "After that, we find a ship," Rilana nodded. "Then let's go." They moved quickly through the back alleys, keeping to the shadows. The storm winds were picking up, making it harder to see. Dust cut across their faces like tiny blades. Elias led the way, Rilana close behind. But the guards were already searching the outer sector. Brandt's voice echoed through a loudspeaker. "Attention, citizens. A Valeth fugitive and her hybrid child are in this area. Report any sightings immediately. Harboring them is an act of treason." Elias gritted his teeth. "He's faster than I thought," Rilana whispered. "They'll kill the boy." "Not if I can help it." They reached the maintenance tunnel entrance, a rusted grate half buried under debris. Elias knelt and pulled it open with all his strength. "Go," he said. "I'll cover you." Rilana slipped inside with Leor. The tunnel was dark, narrow, filled with the smell of oil and metal. She waited at the edge, looking back at him. "Elias, go!" he shouted. She hesitated, then disappeared into the darkness. Elias turned to block the path, raising his weapon. Moments later, flashlight beams cut through the storm. Brandt and 2 soldiers appeared, their armor gleaming under the red sky. "Well, look who it is," Brandt said, smirking. The hero himself. Elias stood firm. She's gone. You won't find her. Brant's smile faded. You think you can protect them? That half-breed? You've already broken enough laws. Elias aimed his weapon. You don't understand. That child is innocent, Brant sneered. There's no such thing as innocent when it's born from monsters. The soldiers lifted their rifles. For a moment the world held still, only the storm roaring in the distance. Then Elias fired. The first soldier fell. Brant ducked, shouting orders. Bullets tore through the air, hitting walls and metal. Elias rolled behind cover, firing again. One shot grazed his arm, burning pain shooting through him. Ward! Brant shouted. You're finished. The colony will hunt you too. Elias gritted his teeth. Then they'll have to catch me first. He threw a flash grenade and ran for the tunnel. The blast filled the air with light and smoke. Brant cursed, blinded. Elias dived into the tunnel, pulling the grate shut behind him. Inside, Rilana waited, trembling. When she saw him crawling toward her, bleeding but alive, she reached out. You came back, she whispered. He smiled weakly. I said I wouldn't leave you again. Behind them, the sound of sirens filled the night. The colony had declared a full lockdown. Elias looked at her and the child. We're outlaws now, he said quietly. Rilana nodded. Then we survived together. The tunnel stretched ahead, dark, endless, uncertain. But for the first time in years, Elias felt something stronger than fear. Hope. The tunnel seemed endless, dark, damp, and full of echoes. Elias moved first, his flashlight flickering over rusted pipes and broken wires. Rilana followed close behind, carrying Lior, whose faint blue glow gave them a ghostly light. The child was quiet now, his little eyes wide and calm, as if he somehow knew they were running for their lives. Behind them, the sound of sirens faded, replaced by the deep hum of the storm above. Dust and wind shook the tunnel walls. The entire colony seemed to tremble under the force of it. How far does this tunnel go? Rilana whispered. About 2 kilometers, Elias said. It comes out near the old landing fields on the edge of the desert. And then? He took a deep breath. Then we find a way off this planet. Rilana looked down at her son. He doesn't belong here, she said softly. Neither of us do. Elias glanced back at her, his face tired but determined. Then we'll find a place where he can. After an hour of crawling through darkness, they reached the end of the tunnel. A large grate blocked the exit, covered in sand and rust. Elias pushed hard until it broke free with a loud creak. A blast of hot air hit them. The night sky outside was red and black, filled with lightning flashes from the distant storm. The desert stretched endlessly, a sea of sand and broken rock. Rilana stepped out first, holding the child tight. The wind whipped her cloak around like wings. Elias followed, pulling the grate back into place to cover their tracks. They stood there, small figures under the massive, angry sky. Rilana whispered, It feels alive. Elias nodded. This desert eats everything, but it also hides what it eats. He pointed toward a faint light far in the distance. Old outpost. It used to belong to smugglers. If it's still standing, we can rest there before dawn. They began walking, their boots sinking into the soft sand. The storm winds grew stronger, throwing dust in their eyes. Elias gave Rilana a breathing mask from his bag. She wrapped it around her face and covered Lior with her cloak. Hours passed. The colony lights were long gone, swallowed by the storm. The night was endless. Elias walked slightly ahead, scanning the horizon. Every shadow looked like danger, every sound like pursuit. Finally, Rilana spoke. You didn't have to come with us. Elias looked back at her. I couldn't stay behind. You could have lived. Now they'll hunt you too. He smiled faintly. They already were. I just gave them a better reason. For a moment, she said nothing. The wind howled, carrying sand like knives. Then softly she said, You've changed. Elias shrugged. War changes everyone. No, she said. Not everyone. You still protect what's good. He turned his head, hiding a small broken smile. I'm not sure there's much good left in me, Rilana. She looked at him, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. There is, or I wouldn't have come back. By dawn, the storm began to calm. The sky turned a pale orange. Elias spotted the outpost, a cluster of old domes half buried in the sand. He raised his rifle, scanning the area. No movement, no heat signatures. They entered through a broken door. The air inside was thick with dust, but it was dry and silent. "This will do," Ilias said, setting his pack down. Rilana laid Lior on a soft cloth. The child was still asleep, his tiny chest rising and falling with calm breaths. The glow around him flickered gently, like starlight. Elias knelt beside him, unable to look away. "He's different," Elias said, "not just in looks. There's something else," Rilana nodded. "Valeth children are connected to energy. He can sense emotion, feel life around him. But he's also human. He has your strength, Elias, your heart." Elias looked down, touched. "He'll need it. The world won't forgive what we are." "Then we won't ask for forgiveness," Rilana said firmly. Outside, the wind carried a new sound, a low hum, mechanical and steady. Elias froze. He crawled to the window and peered out. 3 flying drones hovered in the distance, scanning the desert. Red lights blinked beneath their wings. "They found our trail," he muttered. "They're using thermal scans." Rilana stood beside him. "Can they see through the storm?" "Not perfectly, but close enough." He grabbed his rifle. "We have to move again before they close in." Rilana's face tightened. "Elias, we can't keep running. Leor is too young." He hesitated. "I know, but if they find us here," she interrupted him. "Then we fight." He looked at her, surprised. She wasn't the same frightened woman from the colony. Her eyes now burned with quiet fury. "You'd fight them?" he asked. "For my son?" "For you?" She lifted her chin. "Yes." Elias stared at her for a moment, then nodded. "All right. Then we fight smart." They set traps around the outpost. Explosive charges, motion sensors, and old pulse mines Elias found in a storage crate. Rilana used her alien tech, tiny silver orbs that glowed when enemies approached. The hum of the drones grew louder. Elias checked his rifle, whispering to himself. "Once they spot movement, they'll call the ground patrol. We'll have minutes." Rilana crouched beside him, one hand over Lior's sleeping form. "We only need 1 ship," she said. "After that, they'll never catch us." The first drone appeared over the ridge, red light sweeping the sand. Elias waited, then fired. The drone exploded in a burst of light. The other 2 turned, weapons charging. Rilana threw one of her orbs. It pulsed blue, sending an energy wave that fried the second drone's circuits. It crashed into the sand, burning, but the third drone fired before it fell. The blast hit the dome wall, shaking the whole outpost. Lior woke, crying, a high echoing sound that filled the air with strange vibrations. The walls themselves seemed to shimmer with his cry. Elias turned in shock. The drone suddenly froze mid-air. Its lights flickered, systems dying. It fell silently to the ground. Rilana looked at Elias. "You see?" she whispered. "He's more than both of us." Elias stared at the child, realizing the truth. The boy wasn't just half human and half Valeth. He was something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. The desert was quiet after the battle. Smoke rose from the wreckage of the drones, their metal wings half buried in the sand. The morning sun burned across the dunes, painting everything in shades of gold and fire. Elias stood at the door of the outpost, rifle still warm in his hands. His heart was racing, not from fear, but from what he had just witnessed. The drone hadn't fallen because of his bullet. It had fallen because of the child. He turned back toward Rilana. She was holding Lior, who now slept peacefully again, his glow dimming like a candle after a storm. Elias's voice was rough. "What was that?" Rilana looked down at the child. "You saw it," she said quietly. "He reacted to danger. His energy, connected to the machines, to their signals. It's not something I taught him. He's too young." Elias frowned. "Then how?" Rilana met his gaze. "Because he's not just a child of 2 species. He's something new." They rested for a few hours inside the outpost. The air was hot and dry, but at least safe for the moment. Elias cleaned his rifle while Rilana tended to Lior. Every time the boy breathed, a soft pulse of light shimmered across the room, faint but calming. Elias couldn't stop watching. "If the colony finds out what he can do, they'll take him," Rilana finished for him. "Or worse, they'll try to use him." He nodded slowly. "I've seen what the government does to people they call weapons. He won't survive that." Rilana brushed her fingers across the child's hair. "Then we have to get off this planet." "You said there were smugglers nearby?" "Yes," Elias replied. "Old contacts from the war. They trade under the radar, rare metals, tech, refugees. If they still owe me a favor, they might give us passage." She looked up, hope flickering in her silver eyes. Then we go tonight. When the sun began to sink, the desert came alive again. Shadows stretched long across the dunes. Strange creatures moved under the sand, leaving thin trails that glowed faintly in the dark. The air buzzed with the sound of electricity from distant storms. Elias loaded his pack. We'll move only at night. The heat scanners won't pick us up then. Rylana nodded, wrapping Lior in a silver blanket that dimmed his glow. He'll sleep. He always does when the stars come out. As they stepped out of the outpost, Elias looked back one last time. The burned drones lay scattered like dead birds, a reminder of what they were running from and what they carried with them. They walked for hours, moving between dunes and rock formations. Rylana moved silently, her long cloak flowing behind her. Elias led the way, using a small tracker on his wrist to guide them west, toward the canyon known as the Broken Maw, where smugglers often hid their ships. The stars above were bright and cold. Rylana looked up, whispering in her own language. Elias listened. What did you say? He asked. A prayer, she said softly. For strength. My people believe the stars remember those who are lost. Elias gave a small, tired smile. Then maybe they remember me too. By midnight, they reached the canyon's edge. The ground fell away into a deep chasm, filled with fog and the faint glow of machinery. Old ships lay broken below, some from crashes, some from battles long forgotten. Elias crouched near the edge. We're close. My contact's base should be down there. Rylana peered into the mist. It looks dead. Smugglers like it that way, he said. They began to climb down, slowly and carefully. The air was cooler here and quiet, too quiet. Even the desert wind had gone still. Halfway down, Elias stopped. He heard something, a soft hum, not from the wind, but from machines. Someone's down there, he whispered. They reached the bottom and found the remains of a landing field, metal platforms half buried in dust. Then a figure stepped from the shadows. It was a man, tall, wearing a long coat and a mask with glowing red eyes. Well, the stranger said, voice calm and metallic. You've come a long way, Lieutenant Ward. Elias froze. You know me? The man chuckled. Everyone who fought in the Valeth War knows the traitor who saved an alien. Elias raised his weapon. You from the colony? Not anymore, the man replied, pulling off his mask. His face was pale with faint cybernetic scars. Name's Corin. Used to be a soldier like you. Now I sell what's valuable. His gaze shifted to Rylana and then to the child. And I think you've brought me something very valuable. Rylana stepped back, holding Lior tight. We're not for sale. Corin smiled. Everything has a price. Elias aimed his rifle. Back off, Corin. But Corin didn't flinch. You don't understand, Ward. That child isn't just rare, he's dangerous. The colony wants him. The black markets want him, and even the outer systems have heard of a hybrid who can stop machines with his mind. You think you can hide him? The galaxy will come hunting. Elias's grip tightened. Then they'll have to go through me. Corin laughed softly. Always the soldier. In one quick motion, Corin pressed a button on his wrist. The ground beneath them shifted. A group of armed men stepped out from behind the wreckage, rifles ready. Rylana gasped. Elias? He pushed her behind a metal crate. Get down! Blaster fire lit up the darkness. Sparks flew, echoing through the canyon. Elias fired back, his shots sharp and deadly. 2 men fell, but more moved in. Rylana crouched, shielding Lior. The boy began to cry, soft at first, then louder. The glow around him spreading across the sand like light through water. Corin shouted, Hold fire! The energy! But it was too late. Lior's cry became a wave of light. The air shook. The metal walls hummed. Every weapon in the canyon sparked and died, their circuits fried. The men screamed as their armor overheated. Elias shielded his eyes from the blinding radiance. When the light faded, silence returned. The attackers were gone, or lying unconscious on the ground. Elias turned, staring at the child. Rylana held him close, whispering softly until the glow dimmed again. Corin lay nearby, breathing hard, his mask cracked. He looked at the boy with wide eyes. He's not a weapon, he said hoarsely. He's evolution. Elias glared at him. He's a child, Corin smiled weakly. Then you better protect him, because soon everyone will want him. Elias looked up at the sky. A storm was coming again, dark clouds gathering over the desert. He turned to Rylana. We have to move, he said. Now, she nodded. Where will we go? Anywhere they can't follow. He took her hand and together they walked into the mist, the child glowing faintly between them. Far above, through the storm clouds, satellites began to turn their eyes toward the desert, searching for the light that had just awakened. The night sky above the desert burned with lightning. Elias and Rilana climbed through the misty canyon, their clothes torn, their faces streaked with dust. The storm rumbled like an angry beast. Behind them, the wreckage of Karan's base glowed faintly from the explosion that had followed the child's burst of light. They didn't speak for a long time. The air still crackled with energy. Every step they took felt heavy, like the ground itself was remembering what had happened. Finally, Elias broke the silence. We can't stay here. That blast, someone saw it. Rilana nodded, clutching Lior close. He didn't mean to. He was afraid. Elias looked at the boy. His small hands were still glowing softly. He saved us, he said. But he also told the whole world where we are. By morning, they had reached the edge of the canyon. The desert stretched far and wide again, but now there were no safe shadows left. Above them, something moved in the clouds, dark shapes like ships watching from high orbit. Elias squinted at the sky. Drones? No, too big. Patrol vessels. Rilana's expression darkened. They've already sent warships? Not from the colony, Elias said. These are off-world. Someone else heard the signal. She tightened her grip on Lior. You mean other humans? Elias shook his head. Worse, those are not human engines. They found shelter in a small cave carved into a rock wall. The air inside was cool and quiet. Elias checked his scanner. No signals nearby, but he knew that wouldn't last. The energy wave from Lior's outburst had gone far, maybe even into space. Rilana sat near the wall, feeding the child from a small bottle of nutrient liquid. Lior looked peaceful again, unaware that entire worlds might now be searching for him. Elias leaned against the wall, exhausted. I've seen many things in war, Rilana. I've seen weapons that could melt cities, soldiers who stopped feeling pain. But nothing like him. He's not a weapon. He's a miracle. Rilana smiled weakly. Miracles are what people fear the most. She looked at the boy, brushing his hair gently. When he was born, he didn't cry. The sky over Valeth turned white for 3 days. I thought it was a sign. My people said he would unite what was broken. Elias's voice grew softer. You mean humans and Valeths? She nodded. Or destroy them both if he's used by the wrong hands. A sudden noise interrupted them. A faint, static hum coming from Elias's wrist communicator. He pulled it off quickly and smashed the screen with a rock. They're tracing frequencies, he muttered. Any signal we make, they'll find. But the static didn't stop. It grew louder. Rilana looked around, alarmed. That's not coming from your device. The glow around Lior's hands began to pulse in rhythm with the sound. The static shifted, turning into something else, a voice. Distant, soft, speaking in an alien language neither of them understood. Elias stared. It's coming from him. The voice grew clearer, repeating a phrase over and over. Rilana's eyes widened. It's Valethan. Old tongue, it says. The light has returned. The bridge is open. Elias felt a chill run through him. What bridge? She shook her head slowly. I don't know. But if my people's old legends were true, the bridge connects minds across the stars. Hours later, the sky split with thunder. Elias crawled to the cave mouth and looked up. Through the clouds, a massive ship appeared, silent, black, shaped like a blade. It was not human. The engines didn't roar. They sang, Rilana gasped. That's not a colony ship. That's Valeth design, but older. Ancient. Elias's jaw tightened. They followed the signal. Not them, she whispered. It. As they watched, the ship didn't land. It hovered above the desert, and from its center a beam of light fell to the ground. The sand lifted, swirling upward, forming strange patterns like living symbols. Lior stirred in his mother's arms. His eyes opened, glowing brighter than ever. Elias, Rilana whispered. He's answering it. The beam brightened. The cave began to shake. Rocks fell around them. Elias grabbed Rilana's arm. We have to move. But before they could run, the light reached them. The world turned white. When Elias opened his eyes again, he wasn't in the cave. He stood in a vast glowing chamber, floating symbols and shapes around him, all moving like water. Rilana stood beside him, holding Lior. There was no sound, only a strange hum that seemed to come from everywhere. "Where are we?" Elias whispered. Rilana looked around, awed. Inside the ship, or inside something greater. A voice echoed, not from outside, but inside their minds. "Welcome, protectors of the bridge." Elias turned, searching for the source. "Who's there?" From the light, a figure appeared, tall, golden, neither human nor Valeth. Its form shimmered like energy wearing a shape. "You bring the child of light," it said.
He is the first connection between two broken worlds.
His birth reopened what was lost. Rylana's hands trembled. "You mean the Valeth ancestors?" "We are what remains of them," the being said. "Long before your war, we built the bridges, networks of thought and peace across galaxies. But war destroyed them. The child has reactivated one." Elias stepped forward. "If he can do that, they'll hunt him forever." "They already do," the being replied. "You must protect him until the bridge is complete. If he dies, both your species will follow." The chamber began to tremble. The light around them flickered. "They are coming," the voice warned. "The ones who feed on fear, the human hunters and the Valeth remnants. Leave now." The world twisted again, and suddenly they were back in the cave. The beam was gone. The sky was dark once more. Rilana held Lior close, her heart pounding. "Elias, was that real?" He nodded slowly, eyes full of awe and fear. "Too real." Outside, engines roared. A group of ships was approaching, the colony's military drawn by the energy wave. Elias looked at her. "We can't run anymore. We need to find allies, someone who still believes in peace." Rylana nodded. "Then we go to the stars. The bridge has already opened. Maybe it will show us where to go." He smiled faintly. "Then let's follow the light." They stepped out into the wind, holding the child between them. Above, the stars flickered, one of them pulsing softly as if answering his glow. The stars stretched endlessly before them, glittering like cold fire. Elias sat in the cockpit of the stolen ship, staring through the glass as the engines hummed. Beside him, Rylana adjusted the navigation screen, her silver eyes reflecting the stars. The child, Lior, slept quietly in a small cradle between them, glowing faintly like a soft lantern in the dark. It had been 3 days since they escaped the colony. 3 days since the ancient ship had spoken to them. 3 days since every scanner in the galaxy began searching for the child of light. They had no safe port, no friends, and no plan. Only hope. Elias rubbed his tired eyes. "Fuel's low. We'll have to stop soon," Rilana frowned. "Where can we?" "The colonies are hunting us, and the Valeth survivors will want him too." Elias leaned back in the chair. "There's a place called Druin 9, abandoned mining world. No law, no patrols. We can hide there." Rylana touched Lior's cheek gently. "He's getting stronger. Every hour I can feel it. The ship's lights even flicker when he dreams." Elias smiled softly. "Then let's hope he dreams us somewhere safe." They landed on Druin 9 at dusk. The planet was dark and cold, its surface covered with black stone and mist. The old mining stations lay silent, their towers broken like bones. Inside one of the structures, Elias set up a small camp. The wind outside howled through the cracks, carrying the sound of metal singing in the distance. Rilana lit a small energy lamp, casting pale blue light across the walls. For a while they said nothing. The quiet almost felt peaceful. Then Lior opened his eyes. He looked straight at the sky through the window, though there was no way he could see the stars. His hands glowed brighter than before, filling the room with soft light. Rilana whispered, "He feels something." Elias tensed. "What is it?" Before she could answer, the ship's console started beeping. "Incoming transmission." No signal code, just a voice. "Elias Ward, Rylana of Valeth. You can't hide. The child belongs to us." Elias's blood ran cold. He knew that voice. "Brant." The same guard from the colony. His tone was cruel and calm. "You've cost the Terran Command their best officers and a dozen ships. You're harboring a threat to every human world. Surrender the child and maybe we'll let you live." Rilana stepped closer to the mic. "He's not a threat. He's the future." Brant laughed. "The future doesn't matter. The Council wants power, not peace." The signal cut off. Elias slammed his fist on the console. "They've tracked us again." Rilana looked out at the mist. "Then we have little time. Elias, there's something you must know." She placed her hand on Lior's chest. The light inside him, it's not just energy. It's connection. When he awakened the bridge, he linked to every Valith mind that still remembers peace. But it's unstable. If he's captured and forced to channel it, the energy could destroy entire worlds. Elias stared at her. Then we have to end this now. We can't keep running. Rilana met his eyes. End it? How? He looked down at the boy. By letting him finish what he started. The bridge opened for a reason. Maybe it can stop this war before it starts again. She hesitated. That could kill him. Elias's voice broke slightly. Or save everyone. The ground trembled. Outside, engines roared through the mist. Bright searchlights cut across the horizon. Terran ships descending. Rilana grabbed Lior, wrapping him in her cloak. They're here. Elias checked his weapon. Then let's make our stand. They ran through the ruins, hiding behind old mining towers. Gunfire echoed. Dust exploded around them. Rilana shielded the child with her body while Elias fired back, taking down 2 soldiers before the others surrounded them. Brant stepped forward, armor gleaming under the lights. End of the road, Ward. Hand over the alien. Elias raised his gun. He's not an alien. He's your child's hope even if you can't see it. Brant sneered. I see only a soldier who fell in love with the enemy. Rilana stood up, eyes glowing fiercely. Then maybe that's what it takes to stop being enemies. Before Brant could reply, Lior began to cry. The air shimmered again, just like before in the desert. The soldiers froze, their weapons sparking. The mist lifted into the sky like rising fire. Elias, Rilana whispered. It's happening again. The light from Lior's hand spread outward, forming shapes in the air. Patterns, symbols, then images. Faces of humans and Valiths appeared, flickering together. The bridge was opening again, not inside one ship this time, but across the whole planet. Brant stumbled back, covering his eyes. What is this? Elias dropped his weapon and stepped forward, speaking through the roar of light. It's what we lost, understanding. The soldiers stopped firing. The light entered their helmets, their minds. For a moment they saw everything. Elias saving Rilana years ago, the war's lies, the children who never grew up. The bridge connected them all. When the light faded, the world was silent again. The soldiers stood motionless. Brant lowered his rifle slowly, eyes distant as if something had changed inside him. Rilana held the child, trembling. Elias? He knelt beside her. Lior lay in her arms, still glowing faintly but breathing weakly. He's alive, Elias whispered. He did it. Above them, the sky shimmered. The stars flickered brighter than ever, signals crossing between worlds. Across galaxies, minds were awakening, remembering what unity once felt like. Rilana looked at the heavens. He connected them all. Elias smiled faintly. Then maybe now. They'll stop fighting. Brant stepped closer, his voice quiet. Warden, what do we do now? Elias looked up at him. We build. We protect the bridge. No more soldiers. No more hate. Brant nodded slowly, lowering his weapon for good. Rilana kissed the child's forehead, whispering softly in Valithan. Sleep, little light. You've done enough. Elias wrapped his arm around her as the dawn rose over Druin 9. The first true sunrise he had seen without the sound of war. He whispered, He's not just the child of 2 worlds. He is the bridge. And for the first time in generations, both human and Valith eyes looked up to the same sky, and saw not enemies, but one shared light.